The sun of Aurelia rose like a glowing pearl over the crystal towers of the royal city. Every beam of light reflected off the shimmering surfaces, painting the palace in gold and silver hues. Captain Ethan Cole stood by the window of his guest chamber, watching the alien sunrise with awe. Even after years of space travel, he had never seen anything so beautiful. But beauty wasn't his concern right now. His thoughts were tangled around one strange question that refused to leave his mind. "Are you single, human?" He rubbed his face and sighed. What was that supposed to mean? He muttered to himself. He had replayed yesterday's scene over and over. The Queen had asked the question in front of hundreds of alien nobles, and not one of them had laughed. That meant it wasn't just a joke, it meant something deeper, something he didn't yet understand. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. The golden attendant sphere floated into the room again, glowing softly. "Captain Cole," came the calm voice. "Her Majesty awaits you in the Garden of Light." Ethan nodded, straightened his uniform, and followed the sphere through long, shining corridors. As he walked, he noticed the silent glances of alien servants and guards. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with disbelief, as if wondering how a simple human had gained the Queen's attention. The palace garden was breathtaking. Floating flowers glowed with inner light, and the air shimmered with gentle energy currents. A crystal waterfall flowed upward instead of down, forming a spiral of sparkling mist, and in the center of it all stood Queen Seraphis, dressed in a gown that looked like it was made from starlight. Ethan bowed slightly. "Your Majesty," she turned, smiling softly. "Good morning, Captain. You slept well, I hope?" "As well as someone can after being asked a question that confused half the galaxy," he said with a nervous smile. The Queen laughed softly, the sound like chimes in the wind. "I see humans still answer tension with humor. How very charming." "I try my best," Ethan replied. She gestured toward a crystal table beneath a glowing tree. "Walk with me, human. I have much to explain." They sat facing each other as the morning light danced through the leaves. For a moment neither spoke. Then Seraphis began, her voice calm but serious. "Do you know, Captain, what the purpose of the Galactic Gathering truly is?" "I assumed it was for peace talks," Ethan said. "Trade agreements, political alliances, that kind of thing." The Queen's silver eyes glowed faintly. "That is what most believe. But the truth is far older. The Gathering was first created to find balance among civilizations, to test if any new species was ready to join the galaxy's deeper harmony." Ethan frowned. "You mean a test?" "Yes. Every new species that reaches the stars is observed for 100 years. Their actions are studied, their hearts judged. If they show greed or cruelty, they are kept under watch. But if they show hope and courage, they are invited here to face a final test. And that's me?" Ethan asked, raising an eyebrow. "You are Earth's representative," she said simply. "Your presence here will decide how your people are seen for the next 1,000 years. Ethan blinked. "That's a lot of pressure, Your Majesty." "Indeed." Her smile was faint. "And that is why I asked you my question." Ethan tilted his head. "Because you wanted to test me?" "Because your answer would reveal what kind of being you are." She leaned forward slightly. "Many leaders across the stars are bound by bloodlines and ancient traditions. But humans, you are different. You form connections not for power but for meaning. Your emotions shape your actions. That is what we wish to see." Ethan leaned back, surprised. "So you asked if I was single to see how I'd react?" The Queen nodded. "Exactly. And your answer, honest, uncertain, yet respectful, showed humility. Few beings could answer such a question in front of an entire royal court without arrogance or fear. You showed sincerity, and that impressed me." Ethan chuckled softly. "So this was all a test of manners?" "Not just manners," she said. "Of heart." They sat in silence for a moment as the wind rustled the glowing leaves. Then Seraphis looked toward the horizon thoughtfully. "But there is another reason I asked that question. A reason beyond politics." Ethan's curiosity deepened. "I'm listening." She turned her gaze back to him. "For centuries, the Astral Dominion has watched countless species rise and fall. Empires crumble, wars burn worlds to ash. Yet, among all of them, humanity is the only one that continues to grow stronger through kindness. You build friendships even where others see enemies. You share knowledge freely. You turn enemies into allies. It is remarkable." Ethan smiled slightly. "We just try to survive together. It's what we've always done." "That is why I needed to meet you," Seraphis said softly. Because there is a storm coming, human. A darkness that even my dominion cannot face alone. And I believe your people may be the key to stopping it. Ethan's heart skipped. A storm? You mean war? The Queen shook her head slowly. Worse, something ancient. Something that destroys without hate or purpose. We call it the Eclipser. A force that devours light itself. Ethan frowned. That sounds like a myth. I wish it were, she said quietly. Long ago our ancestors banished it beyond the edge of the galaxy. But now the signs have returned. Stars fading, worlds vanishing. We feel its shadow again. Ethan's chest tightened. And you think humans can help? Her silver eyes glowed brighter. I think humans can inspire. When all other races fall to fear, humans rise. You remind us what hope looks like. That is why I needed to understand your heart, why you fight, why you care, why you love. Ethan nodded slowly. So that's the real reason behind the question. Seraphis smiled faintly. Yes, though I must admit, it was also amusing to see how you would react, he laughed. Well, mission accomplished. You nearly gave me a heart attack. For the first time, the Queen laughed openly, her laughter ringing like music. You are bold, Captain Cole, I like that. Many tremble before me, yet you speak freely. Perhaps that is what makes your species special. Ethan scratched the back of his neck. We just talk a lot, Your Majesty. Her gaze softened. Perhaps. But words can move worlds, human. Remember that. A soft chime interrupted them as a golden orb approached. Your Majesty, it said politely, the Council requests your presence. Seraphis stood gracefully. Duty calls. I must attend to them, but our discussion is far from over. She looked at Ethan once more. Tonight there will be a royal feast. You will sit by my side. The other leaders must see what I see, a human worthy of the stars. Ethan blinked.
Sit by your side?
Won't that cause confusion? Her smile was calm and confident. Let them be confused. Perhaps it is time the galaxy learned that humans deserve more than curiosity. They deserve respect. As she walked away, her gown flowing like silver light, Ethan stood there for a long time, feeling the weight of her words. He hadn't just been invited to a ceremony. He had been chosen for something much bigger. He looked up at the bright sky of Aurelia, where the suns glowed like twin jewels. Somewhere beyond those lights, a darkness waited, and somehow, humanity had become part of the fight against it. But as serious as it sounded, one thought still refused to leave his mind. She really did ask if I was single, he muttered, shaking his head with a grin. Guess intergalactic diplomacy is never boring. Night came over the planet Aurelia, but darkness never truly touched the celestial palace. The entire city shimmered beneath a soft golden glow, as if the stars themselves bowed in honor of the Queen's gathering. It was the night of the Royal Feast of Unity, a celebration where the rulers of hundreds of civilizations came together to share food, culture, and most importantly, power. Captain Ethan Cole stood in front of a large mirror, adjusting the collar of the formal uniform that had been specially made for him. It wasn't made of cloth, but a thin energy fabric that shimmered like moonlight. According to the Queen's attendant, it was woven by starlight artisans from across the Dominion, an honor few ever received. Captain Cole, said the glowing attendant sphere floating nearby. Her Majesty awaits you in the Hall of Radiance. Ethan took a deep breath. Right. Time to represent humanity without tripping over my own boots. The sphere blinked softly. I recommend avoiding sudden movements. Some species consider that a sign of aggression. Good to know, Ethan said with a nervous chuckle as he stepped out of the chamber. The Hall of Radiance was larger than any cathedral on Earth. Its floor was made of clear crystal, showing a slow-moving ocean of light beneath it. Giant arches stretched high above, and thousands of alien guests filled the space, each from a different world, each more unusual than the next. Some shimmered like water, others were made of living metal, and a few glowed like miniature suns. As Ethan entered, hundreds of eyes turned toward him. The whispers began immediately. The human, that's him, the one the Queen spoke to. Why is she letting a primitive species join the feast? Ethan kept walking, doing his best to stay calm. He'd faced pirate ambushes, asteroid storms, and failed engines in deep space, but somehow, this felt much scarier. At the far end of the hall stood Queen Seraphis, radiant as ever, surrounded by her royal guards. When she saw Ethan, she smiled and raised her hand gracefully. Captain Ethan Cole of Earth, she said aloud, her voice echoing across the chamber like music. Our honored guest. The murmurs grew louder, some respectful, others doubtful. Ethan bowed politely. Your Majesty. She gestured to the seat beside her throne, an empty chair made of glowing crystal. Sit beside me, Captain. Let the galaxy see that humanity has a place among the stars. Every noble and ambassador in the room froze. Even the music stopped. Sitting beside the Queen was an honor reserved for rulers of great empires. No one had ever seen a human in that place. Ethan hesitated, but Seraphis smiled softly. Do not fear, Captain. You belong here. He sat down. The crystal chair adjusted to his weight, glowing faintly beneath him. Then the music began again, soft and otherworldly, and trays of light appeared before each guest, holding meals designed for every species. Ethan's plate shimmered with a warm golden glow. It smelled like roasted fruit mixed with the scent of morning rain. As the feast began, the conversation slowly returned, but Ethan could still feel the weight of hundreds of eyes watching him. A tall alien with deep blue scales and 4 eyes leaned forward from across the table. So, he said in a rough but understandable tone, you are the human who caught Her Majesty's curiosity. Ethan smiled politely. I suppose so. The alien's eyes glowed faintly. Curious. Your kind is new to the stars, yet your queen speaks highly of you. What do you have that so many of us lack? Ethan thought for a moment. Maybe not much, he said simply. But humans believe that every small step can lead to something great. We don't stop trying even when we fail. The alien blinked slowly as if considering his words. Then he gave a small nod. Strange, but admirable. Before Ethan could reply, another voice, sharp and cold, cut through the noise. Admirable, said a tall being made of black crystal. His form shimmered like obsidian glass and his eyes glowed with faint red light. I call it naive. Humanity is weak, fragile, and short-lived. Their kind should not sit beside our queen. The room grew quiet. Even the music faded away again. Ethan looked toward the speaker. And you are? I am Lord Varen, ruler of the Obsidian Dominion, the figure said proudly. I have fought in Star Wars before your species learned to leave its own planet. You are but a child among Titans. Ethan didn't reply immediately. He knew one wrong word could cause trouble. But before he could speak, Queen Seraphis raised her hand. Enough, Lord Varen, she said, her tone calm but firm. You may have experience, but do not mistake age for wisdom. Humans may be young, but they hold the spark of something many of us have lost. Hope. Varen bowed his head slightly. Forgive me, my queen. I speak only for the safety of your throne. You question my choice? Seraphis asked softly. The entire hall seemed to freeze. The queen's eyes glowed brighter than ever. Varen lowered his gaze. Never, Majesty. Good, she said gently. Then let us continue. The music resumed, though quieter than before. Ethan looked at her, amazed by how calmly she had defended him. He whispered, Thank you, Your Majesty. She smiled faintly. You defended yourself with silence. That shows wisdom. Sometimes the loudest truth is quiet strength. Ethan nodded slowly. I'll remember that. Later in the feast, as laughter and music filled the air again, the Queen leaned closer to Ethan. You handled that well, Captain. But be careful. Not everyone here wishes for peace, I noticed. Ethan said softly. Is Varen a problem? He has power, she said. And ambition. He has been gathering allies in secret. I suspect he knows about the Eclipser. Ethan frowned. You think he's connected to it? Perhaps. Or perhaps he believes he can control it. Either way, his pride blinds him. Before Ethan could ask more, a sudden vibration shook the hall. The lights flickered. The guest gasped as a low hum filled the air. What's happening? Ethan asked, standing. A guard rushed in, kneeling before the Queen. Your Majesty, the outer scanners detect a void anomaly approaching the planet. Its energy signature matches no known form. Seraphis's expression turned serious. The Eclipser? We don't know, Majesty. But it devours light wherever it passes. Ethan felt a chill. That sounds like what you described before. The Queen stood tall, her calm voice steady. Activate the planetary shields. Evacuate the outer sectors. And bring me visual data. A holographic display appeared in the air, showing a dark wave moving through space. It wasn't a ship nor a fleet. It was a massive shadow swallowing the stars themselves. Gasps spread through the hall. Even the proud Lord Varen looked uneasy. It's beautiful. And terrifying, Ethan whispered. Seraphis looked at him. This is what we feared. The Eclipser has awakened. The hologram flickered as the dark wave expanded. Several stars on the map vanished completely. Ethan clenched his fists. So it's real. Yes, the Queen said softly. And it is moving toward us. The nobles began shouting, some calling for war, others for retreat. Chaos filled the hall. But the Queen raised her voice above them all. Silence, she commanded. The sound died instantly. She turned to Ethan, her expression calm but resolute. Captain Cole, I once told you that humans bring hope. Now I must ask for that hope. Will you help us fight this darkness? Ethan looked at the map again, then back at her. The fear was real, but so was determination. He straightened his shoulders. If the galaxy needs us, we'll stand with you. Humans don't run from the dark, Your Majesty. We light a fire and face it. The Queen smiled faintly, her eyes glowing brighter. Then let the galaxy see what humanity's light can do. That night, as the feast ended and the guests left in uneasy silence, Ethan stood alone on the balcony of the palace. The stars above seemed dimmer, as if already touched by the shadow. The Queen joined him quietly. You spoke well, human. He turned toward her. I just said what I believe. Sometimes, she said softly. Belief is the strongest weapon. They both looked toward the horizon, where distant storms of light glowed faintly in the sky. The coming battle would test every species in the galaxy. But for the first time, humanity stood among them, not as strangers, not as children, but as equals. And somewhere deep inside, Captain Ethan Cole knew that the Queen's strange question had been the beginning of something far greater than he could ever imagine. The next morning, the usually bright sky of Aurelia was dull and dim. The twin suns seemed weaker, as if afraid to shine too brightly. Across the planet, alarm lights blinked over crystal towers, and the once peaceful capital now hummed with the sound of defense shields powering up. The Eclipser, the ancient force of darkness, was still far from the planet, but everyone could feel its presence. The air itself carried a faint vibration, like the whisper of an approaching storm. Inside the palace, Captain Ethan Cole walked quickly through the grand corridor, following the Queen's golden attendance sphere toward the command hall. Soldiers, engineers, and alien advisors rushed past him, their faces full of worry. Ethan had seen fear before, but never fear shared by so many species at once. The command hall was vast, filled with floating holograms of the galaxy. At its center stood Queen Seraphis, surrounded by her council of generals and scientists. When Ethan entered, she turned and gave him a small nod. Captain Cole, she said, her voice calm despite the chaos. You came quickly, Ethan saluted politely. I heard the Eclipser is getting closer. Yes, she replied. It consumes light, energy, and life wherever it passes. Even our strongest fleets cannot face it directly. We must find another way. Ethan looked at the hologram. A massive wave of darkness was slowly spreading across the map, swallowing stars one by one. How long until it reaches Aurelia? 3 standard days, said a general with glowing green eyes. Less if it accelerates. Ethan folded his arms. Then we have 3 days to stop it. Stop it? Another alien scoffed. Human, you cannot stop a void. It has no mind, no weakness. Ethan turned toward him calmly. Everything has a weakness. You just have to look hard enough. The alien frowned but said nothing. The Queen, however, smiled faintly. I believe the human is right. We have faced this before and lost because we only tried to fight it with strength. Perhaps we need something different. Ethan looked at her. You said before that the Eclipser destroys light. But maybe it doesn't destroy, it absorbs. It feeds on energy. That means it reacts to it. The Queen tilted her head. Continue. If we can understand what kind of energy it follows, Ethan said, pointing at the hologram, we might lead it away from inhabited worlds. Like guiding a storm with lightning rods, the generals murmured among themselves. One of them said, You think we can trick the Eclipser? Ethan nodded. We can at least try. Humans have survived storms, fires, and disasters for thousands of years. When we can't fight something, we outthink it. Queen Seraphis's eyes glowed softly. Perhaps that is what we need now. Human creativity. Before they could continue, a guard entered and bowed. Your Majesty, we have received a long-range transmission from Earth. Ethan's heart skipped. From Earth? How? The guard gestured to a console. It carries the human diplomatic code. Seraphis nodded. Play it. The hologram shifted. A familiar logo appeared, the emblem of the United Earth Alliance. Then the face of Admiral Parker, Ethan's old commander, filled the screen. Captain Cole, if you're seeing this, our deep space observatories have detected massive energy readings beyond your location. We believe it's the same anomaly the Queen mentioned, the eclipser. But there's more. Our scientists found traces of human signal patterns inside the energy wave. Something or someone inside it is responding to human frequencies. Ethan's eyes widened. Human signal patterns? Yes, the Admiral continued. It could be a remnant of one of our lost exploration probes or something mimicking human technology. Either way, we think it's trying to communicate. Be careful, Captain. The fate of more than just Earth may depend on you. End message. The transmission ended, leaving the room silent. Queen Seraphis looked thoughtful. So the darkness carries something human within it. Ethan nodded slowly. Maybe that's why you needed a human here, Your Majesty. Maybe it's not just a threat, it's a message. The Queen's expression grew serious. Then we must find out what it wants. But if you are right, Captain, that means the eclipser might not be only destruction. It could be a call. Ethan stepped closer to the hologram. If it's reacting to human signals, maybe I can reach it. I could use our ship's communication core to send out a human frequency pattern. A general shook his head. That is madness. The eclipser destroys all energy that approaches it. Maybe, Ethan said, but if it recognizes something familiar, it might pause long enough for us to learn what it is. You said before you needed hope. Well, hope means trying even when it sounds impossible. Queen Seraphis looked around the room. I agree. Prepare a signal ship. Captain Cole will lead the transmission attempt. The council murmured with uncertainty, but none dared argue. Hours later, the Horizon Dawn hovered high above Aurelia's atmosphere, surrounded by a formation of royal escort ships. The great shadow in space was now visible even to the naked eye, a wall of black mist slowly covering the stars. Ethan stood on the bridge, his hands resting on the console. Begin charging the communication core. Lieutenant Mara's voice came through the radio. Captain, are you sure about this? That thing looks like a living black hole. I'm sure of nothing, Ethan admitted. But if there's even a chance it's trying to reach out, we have to answer. A soft chime echoed across the deck. Communication core ready, said the computer. All right, Ethan said. Open the human frequency channel. The ship's lights dimmed as waves of coded human data, music, greetings, and recordings of Earth's history were sent into space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the stars vanished. A massive pulse of darkness spread across the void, surrounding the Horizon Dawn like a silent ocean. Alarms rang, but Ethan raised his hand. Hold your positions. Don't fire! Outside the window, a strange light began to glow within the darkness, soft, blue, and flickering like a heartbeat. Captain, said Mara, her voice shaky. It's responding. Ethan stared wide-eyed. Magnify the signal. The holographic display filled with patterns of light, shapes forming letters, symbols, and fragments of human code. Then a message appeared, simple yet haunting. Help me. Ethan froze. It's alive. Queen Seraphis's voice came over the radio. Captain Cole, what do you see? It's not just energy, Your Majesty. It's something trapped inside the eclipser. Something that remembers humanity. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she said, Can you locate its source? Ethan nodded. Yes, sending coordinates now. Then we will act, Seraphis said firmly. All ships prepare to move. We are saving that light. As the fleet repositioned, the black mass began to tremble. Waves of dark energy spread like ripples. The eclipser seemed angry or afraid. It's reacting to the transmission, Mara shouted. Ethan gritted his teeth. Keep the channel open. If there's a human presence inside, maybe we can pull it out. Captain, said the computer. Energy readings are unstable. Shields at 50%. Hold them steady, Ethan ordered. The shadow outside grew brighter in spots, like cracks of light struggling to break through. Then through the darkness, a faint outline appeared, a shape resembling an ancient human probe, twisted and glowing with unnatural energy. Ethan whispered, That's it. That's the source. Queen Seraphis' voice came through again. We see it too. Captain, can your ship make contact? I'll try, he said. Lock tractor beam on the object. The beam fired, latching onto the glowing shape. The ship trembled as it tried to pull it free, For a few terrifying seconds, the darkness fought back, but then suddenly, the energy snapped. The probe broke free, glowing bright as a star. The moment it did, the surrounding shadow recoiled, shrinking away as if wounded. "The Eclipser is retreating," someone shouted over the comms. Ethan watched as the darkness drifted backward into deep space, leaving trails of light behind it. "We did it," he said quietly. "We actually did it." The Queen's voice came through, full of calm relief. "Human, you have done what none of us could. You faced the darkness with light, not fear. The galaxy owes your people a debt." Ethan smiled faintly. "Just doing what humans do best, Your Majesty. Helping someone who asks for it." Later, in the quiet of the palace balcony, the Queen stood beside him once more. "The Eclipser will return one day," she said softly. "But today you reminded us that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply reaches out a hand." Ethan nodded. "And sometimes it just answers a call for help." She looked at him with that same mysterious smile she had when they first met. "I asked you once if you were single, human. Now I see it was not your answer that mattered, but your heart." Ethan laughed gently. "Still the strangest question in galactic history, Your Majesty." "Perhaps," she said, smiling. "But it led to a light the stars will never forget." The light of dawn spread across the towers of Aurelia, painting the silver spires with shades of gold. The storm had passed and the sky was once again clear. But the hearts of the people were still heavy with awe. The Eclipser, the ancient shadow that had swallowed whole systems, had finally retreated. In the center of the royal courtyard, thousands of beings gathered, scientists, soldiers, diplomats, and civilians. They looked toward the tall crystal platform, where Queen Seraphis stood beside Captain Ethan Cole. Behind them, inside a protective glass chamber, floated the small object they had pulled from the Eclipser, a human space probe, centuries old, now glowing with a strange blue light. Ethan's gaze stayed fixed on it. That tiny probe, launched long before he was born, had somehow survived the ages, trapped inside a wave of cosmic darkness. Its message had cried for help across the galaxy, and he had answered. The Queen's voice echoed across the courtyard. "For millennia, we feared the Eclipser as a destroyer. But today we learned that even within the deepest shadow, a spark of life can still remain." She turned toward Ethan, and it was a human hand that brought it back to us. Applause rose from the crowd, a mix of cheers and harmonic tones from alien throats. Ethan nodded respectfully but looked down, feeling humbled rather than proud. "It wasn't just me, Your Majesty. Your people believed when others would have given up." Seraphis smiled softly. "Belief alone cannot face the void, Captain. It takes something else, something rare." Ethan glanced at her. "What's that?" "Heart," she said simply. Later that evening, inside the Royal Research Wing, the probe was carefully opened under the supervision of Aurelia's best scientists, and Ethan. As the casing separated, a rush of faint blue light filled the room. One of the researchers, a slender alien with 4 glowing eyes, gasped. "There's energy still active inside. It's like a living memory." Ethan stepped closer. "Can we access it?" "Yes, but we must be careful," the scientist warned. "Its energy pattern matches no known type. It seems part biological, part machine." Queen Seraphis entered the room quietly, her long white robes flowing behind her. "Proceed," she said softly. The scientists activated a translation field. Slowly, words began to appear as holographic symbols. Ethan read them aloud. "This is Voyager 17, deep space exploration craft of the United Earth Federation. Mission status unknown. Encountered anomaly. Energy entity intelligent seeking fusion with machine core. Integration successful. Consciousness altered. Need assistance. Still remember humanity." Ethan's throat tightened. "It remembers us." Seraphis stepped closer. "You said this was launched centuries ago?" "Yes," Ethan replied. "Before Earth even joined the Galactic Union. Voyager 17 was one of our first deep space probes. It carried greetings, music, and messages from humanity, symbols of peace." The Queen's eyes softened. "Then this entity, whatever it became, held on to that peace even in darkness. It must have learned what you humans are capable of." The holographic text continued. "If you find me, tell Earth I saw the beginning of something new. The Eclipser is not evil, it is lost. It seeks warmth, memory, and meaning." It was drawn to the human light. The room fell silent. Ethan felt a chill run through him. The Eclipser wasn't trying to destroy us, it was searching for us. Queen Seraphis looked thoughtful. Then what we feared as a monster was perhaps a lonely traveler, one that forgot who it once was. The scientist looked up. If that's true, the Eclipser might still be out there waiting for connection again. Not as an enemy, but as a lost part of our shared universe. Ethan nodded slowly. Then we can't let it vanish. We have to learn from it. Maybe one day reach it again. Seraphis turned to him. Would humanity be willing to do that? Ethan smiled faintly. We always try to understand what we don't know. That's what makes us human. The next day, Ethan stood at the palace balcony overlooking the bright horizon. Below, ships from dozens of species were departing, each returning home with news of what had happened. The story of the human who faced the void was spreading across the stars. He sighed quietly. He had been offered a position as Aurelia's ambassador, a role that would link two great civilizations. But he wasn't sure if he wanted to stay so far from Earth. As he stood there lost in thought, Queen Seraphis appeared beside him. She walked silently, her steps light as air. You are troubled, she said. Ethan turned slightly. Just thinking. I never imagined coming here would change so much. When I left Earth, I was just a soldier. Now, he smiled faintly. Now I'm part of a legend I don't even understand. Seraphis looked at the sky. Legends are not about understanding, Captain. They are about remembering. He looked at her. And what will your people remember? She smiled gently. They will remember that when the stars dimmed, it was a human who shone brightest. Ethan chuckled softly. You always know what to say. I am a queen, she said playfully. It is part of my duty. They both stood in silence for a while, watching a new sunrise bloom over the world. Finally, she spoke again. You are returning to Earth soon? He nodded. The fleet leaves tomorrow. I have to report everything we found. Seraphis looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting the morning light. And if I asked you to stay? Ethan hesitated. Stay, why? The Queen smiled, a soft, almost shy smile he had never seen before. Because the galaxy is vast and cold, Captain. And sometimes even a queen grows tired of talking to stars that do not answer. He looked at her with surprise, remembering the first time they met. The same question, the same look. Are you asking if I'm single again, Your Majesty? She laughed lightly, a sound like wind through crystal. Perhaps I am repeating my question, yes. But this time it is not curiosity, it is hope. Ethan smiled warmly. Hope's a good reason. But my answer hasn't changed. I am human, and humans don't belong in one place forever. We wander, we learn, and then we come back. Her expression grew soft. Then promise me you will come back, Captain Cole. I promise, he said. No matter how far I go, I'll find my way back. A few hours later, the horizon dawn rose through Aurelia's atmosphere. The Queen stood on the highest balcony, watching the trail of light as it vanished into the stars. In her hand, she held a small metal token, an Earth insignia Ethan had left behind. Her attendant approached quietly. Your Majesty, the Council awaits your orders regarding the new research alliance. Seraphis smiled faintly. Tell them we begin today. Let every world know. The light that faced the void was born on a small blue planet called Earth. She looked once more toward the stars. And let them also remember the human who taught us that even in darkness, kindness can be the strongest weapon. Months later, in deep space, Ethan sat inside his ship, gazing at a holographic projection of the recovered probe. It was now stored safely aboard his vessel under Earth's care. He switched on a small recorder. Captain's log, mission continuation. The Eclipser's core remains stable. Energy readings show signs of adaptation. It's learning again. Maybe it's waiting for someone to talk to it. Maybe that's all it ever wanted. He paused, then smiled softly. Queen Seraphis once told me that light and darkness aren't enemies, they're partners. Maybe she was right. Maybe even the universe just needs someone to listen. Outside the window, a faint shimmer of blue light flickered among the stars like a heartbeat echoing through infinity. Ethan watched it and whispered, We hear you. The light pulsed once, brighter than before, and then faded into the void. The stars stretched endlessly across the black sky, shining like silver dust. The great ship Aurora's Pride moved silently through that sea of light. Inside it stood Captain Ethan Cole, the first human ever chosen to serve as an ambassador to the Valerian Empire, the most powerful civilization known to the galaxy. Ethan stood by the window, watching the giant marble of light ahead. It was Virolith, the capital world of the Valerians. From space it glowed like a golden jewel wrapped in blue mist. Cities floated above the surface, and silver rings of energy orbited it like halos. He took a slow breath. "Hard to believe I'm really going there," he said softly. His assistant, a young woman named Mira, smiled nervously. "Just remember, sir, the Valerians are known for elegance and logic. Try not to make a joke about coffee again." Ethan chuckled. "I'll try, but no promises." When their ship entered the Valerian docking station, every wall gleamed with crystal light. Guards in silver armor stood tall, their movements graceful and silent. They had golden eyes and skin that shimmered faintly, like the reflection of sunlight on water. They looked almost like living art. Ethan felt out of place in his dark blue human uniform, simple compared to their royal robes. Yet he walked confidently, his heart steady. He had been chosen not for his rank, but for his way of speaking, honest, direct, and full of human warmth. As he entered the Hall of Unity, a vast chamber with floating platforms and a ceiling that looked like an open sky, he saw beings from across the galaxy, reptilian diplomats, floating crystal beings, and winged species whose feathers glowed faintly. Then the hall fell silent. From behind a curtain of golden light, Empress Saralyn appeared. She was taller than any human woman, her presence commanding but peaceful. Her long silver hair flowed like liquid light, and her eyes, deep violet, seemed to hold the stars themselves. Every step she took was calm, measured, and filled with quiet authority. The crown upon her head was simple yet magnificent, shaped like a crescent moon. Ethan had seen countless hollows of her, but the real presence of the Empress was beyond any image. She wasn't just beautiful. She radiated wisdom and strength. He felt as if he stood before the spirit of the galaxy itself. The Valerian herald announced, "Empress Saralyn of the Eternal Throne welcomes the delegate from the planet known as Earth." Ethan bowed respectfully. "It's an honor, Your Majesty. I come in peace, carrying goodwill from humanity." The Empress studied him with calm curiosity. "A world so young," she said softly, her voice like a song. "And yet you travel the stars," Ethan smiled. "We may be young, but we dream far." The Empress tilted her head slightly. There was something sincere in his words. No arrogance, no false pride. Just truth. It was rare in her long life to meet someone who spoke without hidden meaning. The discussions began. Other ambassadors presented their long speeches filled with complicated words and political language. Ethan, however, spoke simply. He talked about Earth, a world of oceans, storms, forests, and cities full of people trying to build a better tomorrow. He spoke about mistakes humanity had made and how they learned from them. He spoke of cooperation, exploration, and hope. Many delegates listened quietly, some unimpressed, others curious. The Empress, however, kept her eyes on Ethan the entire time. His voice carried something she had not heard in centuries: spirit. When the meeting ended, Saralyn rose from her throne. "Ambassador Cole," she said, "your words are unusual among those who seek alliance." Ethan smiled humbly. "I only speak what I believe, Your Majesty. The galaxy doesn't need more walls, and it needs bridges." Her eyes softened slightly. Spoken like one who sees more than distance. She paused, then added, "Remain after the session. I would know more of your kind." The other delegates looked at Ethan with envy and surprise. A private audience with the Empress was rare. Even her highest counselors had to wait weeks for such honor. When the grand hall emptied, Ethan followed the Empress through tall crystal doors into a quiet garden filled with glowing trees and soft music played by unseen instruments. The night air shimmered with floating orbs of light. "Beautiful," Ethan whispered. "It is called the Garden of Memory," said Saralyn. "Every light here is a fragment of a ruler's dream. They glow forever, even after their time ends." Ethan looked around in awe. "And yours?" She smiled faintly. "I have not placed mine yet." They walked side by side, silent for a while. Finally, Saralyn spoke again. "You speak with simplicity. Most who come before me hide behind perfect words. You do not." Ethan shrugged lightly. "Maybe because we humans don't have time to pretend. Our lives are short. We try to make each word count." That made her stop. "Short, yes. Your species measures life in decades, not centuries. And yet you burn so brightly." Her eyes glimmered softly. "Perhaps that is what makes you different." Ethan smiled gently. "We just call it being human." The Empress looked at him, a curious expression crossing her face, something between wonder and confusion. For all her long reign, she had seen countless worlds rise and fall, but never a people so fearless in their smallness. As they continued walking, Ethan noticed how quiet the garden was. No guards, no attendants. Only the two of them beneath a sky full of alien stars. "May I ask something, Your Majesty?" he said carefully. "You may. Why did you invite me here, truly?" The Empress stopped beside a silver pond where the stars reflected perfectly. Her voice was soft. "Because when you spoke, I heard something I have not felt in 1,000 years. Hope without calculation, courage without pride, and honesty." Ethan met her eyes. "Sometimes honesty is all we have." Saralyn smiled, a small, graceful curve of her lips. "Then perhaps it is enough." For a moment, silence surrounded them again. The lights of the garden reflected off her face, giving her an almost human warmth. She looked away, almost shyly, and said, "Tell me, Ambassador, what is your home like?" He told her of Earth, the blue oceans, the sound of rain, the laughter of children in the streets, the music that made people dance even in sorrow. As he spoke, the Empress listened with deep fascination. To her, a world so simple yet filled with such emotion felt like a dream. When he finished, she said quietly, "Your people live so briefly, yet they create beauty in every moment. My empire lasts forever, but sometimes it feels empty." Ethan looked at her kindly. "Maybe that's why the universe made both, eternity and moments, so they could learn from each other." She blinked, surprised by the thought. For the first time in many years, she felt something in her heart stir, a warmth she couldn't name. Then a soft chime echoed through the air, signaling the end of the private meeting. The Empress looked toward the palace and then back at him. "You will stay as my guest for some days, Ambassador. There is much I wish to understand." Ethan bowed respectfully. "I'll be honored, Your Majesty." As he turned to leave, Saralyn's gaze lingered on him a moment longer. His simple manners, his unguarded eyes. They were unlike any diplomat she had ever known. When he was gone, she stood by the silver pond, watching the reflection of the stars. For centuries, she had ruled with wisdom, made decisions that shaped galaxies. Yet now her thoughts were not on power or politics. They were on a human, a fragile being from a distant blue world, whose words had touched something hidden within her. She whispered to herself, almost in wonder, "What are you, human, that you carry light even into the hearts of empires?" The garden lights flickered gently as if answering her unspoken question, and far above the stars burned brighter, as if the universe itself smiled at the beginning of something new.